Welcome to Accelerate Your Dental Practice, the show for dental professionals ready to grow smarter, faster, and stronger. Hosted by Michelle Affanato of Affinity Management Consulting and Malika Azargoon of Zar Dental Consulting. Each episode delivers practical strategies and expert advice to help you streamline operations, increase profitability, and reduce stress. Let's get started.
Welcome back to Accelerate Your Dental Practice. Today I'm excited because it's just Malika and I today. I know we've had some guests and we went off camera for a really fun episode with some of our colleagues, but Malika and I are back together again. And we've been talking a little bit this week. I'm sure our listeners can relate to this, as both of us will help our clients with staffing. And we help only our existing clients with staffing.
Yes. This is not we don't do staffing services.
Yeah, so there's a big disclaimer right out there, like, do not call us to help you hire. But if you are a client of ours, we will always help you. And we want to dive into this today because it's going to be a little bit funny, a little bit scary, I think, and just like wild as to what is going on out there right now. So I know it's really hard to find good, I will emphasize the word good, team members these days. Like I've heard a lot of people, like, they're putting out ads and they're getting a lot of applicants, but people aren't paying attention, right? Like there's an ad out there for a registered dental assistant and somebody who's like working at Dunkin' Donuts is applying with no background in dentistry. So I see a lot of that, which is frustrating to whoever's doing the hiring because you're sorting through all of these resumes and it's like you click on it and you're like, okay, they have no experience, reject. So the quality of the candidates out there is not fantastic.
Yeah, I mean, I know, Michelle, you and I talked about this, but I mean, you get some things. I actually have screenshot some of the stuff I get because I'm like, we're in the world of Chat GPT now. There should be no excuse that their resume should have misspellings. Chat GPT can create anybody a resume right now. You can tell them exactly all your prompts and they can make it happen. I also think that, yes, Indeed is the place everybody goes to. But I think we also need to get a little bit creative about, where do we dip into to find candidates? And, I think you and I talked about this, Michelle, like if the listeners, you haven't yourself logged into Indeed yourself to try to apply for a job, I encourage you to do that because you also need to see the process. Because if you don't know how it's being done, it's hard to judge the other side. Because you also want to see if your ad is live, act like you're someone who's applying to that ad. Read the ad, read the competition of other ads in your profession, in your town. Because that individual that's looking to be your dental assistant or a dental assistant in your area is also looking at other ads in that area. If some of you might do, like, I don't know, Michelle, if your clients do this, but like some of mine want to do like questionnaires because they want to see if the individual is, qualified to do billing. Also, there's prompts for questions in there. Are you making it user friendly? Are the questions reasonable? Because you also want to be realistic of what you're asking. Because sometimes I'll get clients say, I put an ad out for a month, but I haven't got anything. And we look at the ad and there's some things that are missing that's causing that.
Sure. And definitely do your research to see what other people are offering. And I know everybody's at a different phase in their practice life. Startups versus more established practices established practices can offer a little bit more, maybe a higher salary, more benefits, but kind of look so that you can be competitive with the others. Otherwise, you're not going to get clicks on your ad. And then regardless of who's doing the hiring, whether you're doing it yourself or you have a team member doing it, first of all, review the resume. And I remember I had a doctor who was like, this resume didn't have dates of when somebody worked somewhere. So it'd be like, I worked here, I worked at this place, I worked at ABC Dental, I worked here, but there were no dates, like time frames when this person worked there. And the doctor's like, that's not worth my time. It's not worth my time to call this person. And what's funny is that person who she didn't reach out to actually just showed up at her office one day and made it seem like she had a scheduled interview. And the doctor was like a little bit confused. She's like, I don't remember scheduling something for today, but like maybe I did. And when she sat down with the person and the person like handed the resume, she's like, yeah, I never heard from you about this job. So I figured I'd just show up today. And the doctor said, I can tell you exactly why I never reached out to you. And she ended up having a good conversation with the person and eventually went on to hire her.
Oh, wow.
But she would have missed that person because, like you said, we're in the world of AI and chat GPT and stuff, but this resume was so, I don't even know what the word is. Like it was not informative at all. And it could have been fake for all she knew.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'm sure you know this. Indeed also is using AI for the search purposes of people looking. So it's really important that when you're running your ad, you talk to someone. And that I think the representative at Indeed are very helpful. So schedule a call with them, have them look at your ad because they'll give you feedback about what should be on there. Because what it does is also it attracts certain resumes towards you based on what your keywords are in your ad. So if you're saying experience only, but it also depends on where you're putting that, because I'm sure, Michelle, if you go through resumes for your clients, sometimes you're like, I said experience only, but this person only worked at Chick-fil-A. Why is this person in the bucket? And from what I learned was that it depends on where those keywords are in order for it to funnel resumes to you, which I never even knew that, which I thought was interesting.
That is very interesting. I'm not sure I was aware of that either.
Yeah. So, I mean, definitely schedule a call with a rep. If you get a lot of incorrect resumes despite your ad being clear, Indeed's pretty good about refund you for those clicks and allowing you a chance to fix it. Because I know Indeed is so expensive. Like I joke and say, we'll put one ad on, it's like $500 a month to just get a bunch of resumes. And a lot of times, like they don't show up. They don't even show up to their appointments, and you schedule all these meetings or calls or Zooms or even in-person meetings. Like you said right now, you had someone that wasn't even scheduled and just showed up to the office, which I think is crazy.
I mean, it is crazy out there right now. So I am helping a couple offices right now screen candidates. I usually do the telephone screening for them, kind of weed some people out because I know doctors are so busy. And to take time out of your schedule away from patients to meet with people, like you want to make sure you have somebody that is serious about this. So I set up an interview on Monday of this week. I messaged the person back and forth. We scheduled it for Tuesday at 6:30. I called at 6:30. It immediately went to voicemail. So when that happens, I usually just leave a voicemail and then I go back into Indeed and say, like, I called you at the number that you had. If you get this, because sometimes things happen. And I'm like, if you get this in the next 10 minutes, give me a call back. She responded the next day and she's like, I tried calling you and it went right to voicemail. And I was like, oh, that's interesting. Because I always give my phone number so that they know, like, it's me when I call. And so I said, okay, well, maybe we tried to call each other at the same time. And, like, it went to voicemail for both of us. So I gave her the benefit of the doubt. Scheduled it again for last night, 2 days later, at 5:30 p.m. Call at 5:30 p.m. This time it rings all the way through and it goes to voicemail. So to me, like, that's 2 strikes. Right?
I was gonna say, I'm done. I'm moved on.
I sent her a message and I just said, like, hey, I tried calling you again for our scheduled time. It didn't go, like, maybe this isn't the right fit for you. And, like an hour before we just got on this call, she reached out to me again. I'm so sorry we keep missing each other. Can we schedule something for next week? And I was like, no, we can't. Like, this is already not a great impression for me.
I don't know, but I think I hate to say generation or I don't know mindset. These candidates think these interviews are so casual in the sense that, oh, if I'm not available, I miss it. Like it doesn't play against me. And they don't realize you're just showing your ability as in the sense of how reliable you are, how punctual you are. That is already a strike against you. I don't understand. How can you not put that in your calendar? Or, I get a lot of excuses when we go through candidates. Well, it was during my lunchtime and we ran over. Okay, fair enough. Then don't schedule it during lunchtime. If you know your office that you're currently working at runs over lunch, you shouldn't do that during lunchtime. There should be no excuse for that.
Right. I don't know. Because when I was interviewing for jobs, like I would never, like I would have reminders everywhere. I would be dressed so professionally. I would show up early, kind of scope things out myself. That's not how it is. Now, I think people think I'm going to apply for the job and I'm going to get it just because I have this experience. So again, I had somebody apply. I reached out to them and said, like, I'd like to schedule a telephone interview. And the response was like, yeah, sure, I'm available. But can you tell me how long it'll take for me to know if I got the job or not? Because everybody usually has me come in first. And I said, well, the way we do things is like, just want to talk to you over the phone, let you know about the office a little bit, see if it's something you are interested in. And she responded, yes. Misses the call and then responds in the thing saying, like, you never set up a time for an interview with me. And I was like, okay. And I looked back through the chain and I'm like, it was there. And then, like, literally every hour was like, is there any update? Is there any update? And I was like, you know what? I think we're going to be going with a different candidate. So I don't know what people are thinking when they put out these applications. Like, you're lucky if you get anybody to respond.
Yeah.
And then,
and I think that is not, I always say, I tell my clients, it's not you, it's not your office. It's just the staffing world is just this wild, wild west. I've never seen it. My generation of working, and I'm sure you, like you and I can,
yeah,
I don't even understand what's happening. I don't know why these candidates or these get on that call. Forget about showing up to the office. To your point, can't even pick up the phone and answer during an interview.
Right. It's very different. It is very, very, very different world. And it's not just one state. It's not just one position, right? This is every state. I work with all over the country. It's also every position, hygiene, assistant, front office. I had an office. So I guess one of the points I want to get across is don't set your expectations too high when you put out an ad of like who you're going to get. Because I strongly believe that the rock star employees, if they're already in an office, those doctors, the owner of that place is going to do whatever they can to keep that person happy and in the office. So what is out there available for employment, I think, are mediocre employees. Now, that doesn't mean you can't get a mediocre employee to do a good job for you in the right environment, right? But I think people are still having these really high expectations for people, so they're bypassing some resumes or people for specific reasons. For example, I have an existing practice that is looking for a front office person. The front office person is retiring, and I've sent over a few good candidates, and the doctor said to me, well, Michelle, like, I don't know if I want this person because he's going to retire in 10 years. And I was like, 10 years? That's like, you can't guarantee that anybody's going to stay with you for more than 3 months or a day. So, like, I wouldn't be worried about that long term. Worry about, like, can you get somebody in and that they're the right fit? Because everybody's circumstances change all the time, right? Like, somebody might have dreams of going to hygiene school. Not super easy to get into hygiene school. Do they want to go through all of that? So they might tell you during their interview, like, yeah, I want to apply to hygiene school in a year or two. But then they end up staying with you for 5-6 years. So I think we need to lower our expectations on the skill set that people have, in addition to, like, how long are they going to be with us? Because I feel like the days of getting somebody that's with you for 10, 20 years, we're not seeing that anymore.
It's over. It's over. I think to your point, it's funny you say that. Like, I get it. Like, people think long term, can this individual stay with me? But I used the pre-dental students as a great example. I had a situation in an office where I was like, this pre-dental student wants experience, is applying to dental school, but it doesn't mean that she's gonna get in. But she's driven because she has a goal. She needs the experience and probably the recommendation letter from you. Give her the chance. And the argument for my client was, for a year, I don't have time to train her. And then she leaves. I was like, give it her chance. We're 2 years in. Unfortunately, she hasn't gotten to dental school. She's now reconsidering hygiene school. And she's given 2 years. And she's the best employee he says he's had in 10 years. So you don't know what, like, you can't project what, to your point, who's, like, can she even stay a month? 3 days? Like, we don't even know these days. We can have the best candidate that promises the world and they show up and we're like, oh my God, they're horrible. Or they just no-show and we, all the no-shows we get and we just, like, they just ghosted us. We don't know what happened. So it depends on the scenario. But I think if you have someone that's sitting in front of you that has most of the boxes and your concern is timeline of retention, that's a You're gambling with that. You don't know. You really don't.
Believe me, I understand. It costs money. It costs a lot of money to bring in a new hire and to train them, not to mention the team's frustration of spending the time to train somebody new. But these times are very different. They're very, very different. So you have to approach it with a different mindset.
Yeah.
And I'm not saying, like, I still have offices that find that diamond in the rough, that they're absolutely amazing. And when you find that person, you do everything you can to keep them with you. You know, I also like to say, whenever possible, overstaff if you can. Like, if you have an extra assistant or somebody that can float, it's always good to have that, because you just never know. People just wake up one day and like, I'm tired of going to work. And they just, like, out of nowhere,
stop showing
call.
up.
Yeah.
Yeah, they just
And
stop showing.
it's,
And I think it's a great, like, to your point, I think having an overstaff, a cross-trained person, even someone in sterile that can just be there. At least there's somebody in your office that, God forbid, you don't have a front desk one day, you can put them in the front to answer the phones, because anybody can answer phones. So you can just at least have them answer the phones. I'm even, Michelle, a fan of the virtual assistant. Somebody
yes.
virtually that I tell my clients, I'm like, if you're having high turnover, if you're in an area in the country where it's hard to find people, just get that virtual at least to answer your phones, because it's tough out there, and you're better off having somebody that you know they're part of a company, they're supposed to work X amount of hours, and they're gonna log in, they're gonna answer that phone, better than having nobody.
That's really important. I'm a fan of, like, automating or outsourcing as much as you can, because there's just not the reliability anymore. So I agree with you 100%. Malika, to, like, get that virtual assistant to help with, it's answering the phones. Unfortunately, you can't get a virtual assistant to be a hygienist or a
No,
dental assistant, but you can.
not clinical.
Maybe someday. Maybe someday. I don't
You never
know.
know.
I don't know. But in the interview process, this is something that I find a lot of doctors cut corners on, because they're in a rush, right? They don't want to draw out the process, because they're like, this person's in high demand, and if I don't snatch them up right away, somebody else is going to. And they skip two very important things. Number one, reference checks.
Mm-hmm.
I know, like, people are like, what? They can't really tell you anything. They can tell you a lot. They actually can tell you a lot. The biggest question for me, like, I don't even need to know, like, did they work there? Yes. Were they a dental assistant there? Yes. Are they eligible for rehire? That answer to that question right there basically tells me everything I need to know.
So true.
And if they hesitate, it's a no. If they hesitate, it's a no. And they don't even have to go into detail as to why they're not eligible for rehire. But if you don't do your due diligence and do the reference check, and then you're upset because your new hire is late every day or calls in sick all the day, that's probably something you could have found out really quickly in a quick reference check.
And I think you nailed it there. I think the key word is that last question, and I don't know with you, but we do the reference check for, existing clients when we do a support with staffing. One of the requirements we have is that it cannot be an employee from another practice. It needs to be the owner, because you don't know. Everybody can say they're the office manager. They can say they're a lead. It needs to be the doc. If they're coming from dentistry, it needs to be the doctor. If they're coming from another profession that you're willing to train that individual, it still needs to be their boss. Because I can have my friend, my neighbor be my reference. It doesn't mean so. What I'm saying, like, don't be naive and say, oh, Malika, I did my reference checks. And I'm like, oh, okay, let me look at it. And I'm like, oh, the girl that worked with her at Target is giving you the reference check. Of course she's going to say they were the best. Look, guess what? I'm going on Facebook and I see them in pictures together having a drink. They're best friends. So, like, be very cautious with that, because to Michelle's point, that tells you, right there, you can make a quick decision of, okay, am I going to get this individual a chance or not? Skipping that, you're then onboarding, training, and I always say you're exposing them to your secret sauce, and then you're like, oh my God, they're unreliable, I gotta get rid of them, and then you're back to the drawing board again.
And I know I'll never forget when somebody called me. I was filling in for one of my clients doing and I was handling the references when an employee was looking for another job. And somebody called about this particular employee, and the question she asked is, how was she as a dental assistant? And my response was, she was great when she was here. And that's all I said. And they were like, okay, I think they had a follow-up question. And I go, of course, when she was here, she did a fantastic job with that. So what was I saying? She called out a lot. Without saying, she called out a lot,
Yeah,
right?
yeah,
And
yeah.
that person was like, okay, I get it. I get it. So that's the first thing is do never, ever skip the reference check. Now, Malika, what's number 2?
Background check. Do the background check, guys. It's like not, it doesn't even cost that much. Between $125 to $200, depending on the company, but it tells you so much. It doesn't matter if you're a dental assistant or in the front desk, because a lot of times I might get clients say, they're just in the back. Why do I need to do it? End of the day, there is money in your office. They have access to your software. Stealing doesn't just come from front desk and billing. Stealing comes from stealing supplies from you. I had an office where the assistant stole so much whitening material. It was a nightmare. And the minute afterwards, they decided to do a background check on everybody just to get this out. She was fired from a restaurant from stealing.
Yep. And like you said, it's not just money that is being stolen. Like you said, whitening. Like I've seen paper towels and toilet paper. Like people walking out with armfuls of that. Like stamps, like paper. It's wild how they think they're just entitled to stuff. But yeah, I've seen, I've done some background screenings, for companies or for my clients and looked at the results. Some of them are like, oh, this person had a traffic violation or it was their 3rd traffic violation and they had to go to court. Or, you can look at it. Doesn't mean just because something shows up on the background check that they're not hireable. But if somebody was fired from a job for stealing, they would not step foot in my office.
Yeah.
So, and it's very important that you do these before you make an official offer. Because once you give that official offer letter, it's really hard legally for you to back out of it. So, because you should have done your due diligence before. So I usually tell people hey, we're really interested in you. We'd like to move on to the next step of, bringing you on board. That would be contingent on completing a reference check and a background check. Once all of that is completed, then I'm happy to provide you with an offer letter. So now you know if they're still willing. I've gotten to that point too where I said, I'm going to send you the link for the background check, and then the person just disappears.
I was going to say, sometimes suddenly it already answers your question. You're done. You can move on.
Yeah. Yep. They're all gung ho and they're like, yeah. Just like the patient who's like, yeah, I'm going to come in and bring my $2,000, and then they just don't show up for their appointment, right? That happens a lot too, is they're all gung ho and yeah, sure, check my references and, do the background check, and then you send them the information and you never hear from them again.
I had a
you dodged a bullet.
I had a situation where my client was like, I'm going to do background check on you, this individual. She was like, yeah, I just want to let you know that when you pull my records, it shows that I was a drug dealer. But that was 10 years ago. I'm good now.
Oh my gosh.
And my client was like, what do I do now? I was like, you still do the background check because you already offered it. You have to do it. Then you have to see what really shows up in the record, And the reason I'm bringing this up is sometimes people might have had had made bad choices depending on what the reference says, because this individual's reference was flawless, worked at another practice for 5 years. And anyways, after everything came back, my doctor ended up hiring her, and she's been there for 3 years now and one of the best dental assistants. So
yeah.
Sometimes you just don't quickly, if someone tells you something because they're being honest and upfront, don't also panic and say, I'm not going to do it. Okay, I'm just not going to hire her. That's unfair too. You need to do your due diligence that you promised and then make the judgment after that.
Exactly. Everybody has a past. Everybody does silly things. Especially I know checking social media is a big thing now, right? So I know people do silly things when they're younger or whatever, but you have to look at it and say how big of a deal is it, right? I had a a pediatric office, and when they were looking at someone's social media, the person had like this big picture or video right on there that was like her at some bar with that, and she was topless getting her chest painted. And I was like, I'm not sure if I want that in a pediatric office. I'm not sure.
That's why I always say, I was like,
So,
when I even talk to like people on the phone, like candidates, I even like give them some unsolicited advice. I'm like, your social media is everything. You don't make it very private so people can't access it. But if you have an open social media, know that when you're applying for a job, people are gonna look at it.
for sure. I
Or your
teach that to my
profile picture at
daughter.
least should be, yeah, and also your profile picture at least should be professional. If you're gonna block everything, I mean, because I've seen all kinds of things when I look at those profile pictures. I mean, and we live in a world where we have somehow make those judgments that way. Because to your point, if you're in pediatric and dealing with children, what you put on social media, at the end of the day, is a reflection of who you are. So you have to be very, very careful.
I know. And it's not hard in this day and age to like throw into chat GPT, like, I'm applying for a big girl job, big boy job, right? Like, how do I make myself seem more professional? Like, help me with my resume, help me with my social media. Like, it's so easy to do that stuff. And for me, do you know how many resumes I've come across once I get the people on the phone or I start interacting with them? Resume says they live in Arizona, but they're applying for a job in Florida. Do you still live in Arizona? Are you moving to Florida? When are you moving to Florida? Oh no, I've lived in Florida for a year now. But the resume is not updated. Or it says I work at this place, 2003 to present. So when I say, like, are you still working at this place? Oh no, I haven't been there in like a year and a half. So why are we looking at people like it's if they can't update their resume and have it on Indeed before I move forward with them, I'm always like, I need an updated resume. So you need to like send it to me directly, and then some unsolicited advice is like you might want to keep your resume up to date
Yeah.
on there, because I'm sure people are getting passed over because of little things. And so, but also you need to know as the person who's doing the hiring to look out for little things as well. Somebody may not be professional. I mean, I've seen some wild email addresses. Wild. Like, it's not hard to get a free, Michelle Affanato at Gmail, right? It's not hard to do something like that.
It's funny you
So,
say
but
that
I've
because
seen,
I feel like we should make a list of all the emails. It's crazy stuff.
yeah. And I look at it and I'm like, okay, like, yeah, on paper, they have the qualifications. But right away, my first impression of this person is going to be different because of what their email address
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
says. Or like I had a resume that like I don't know what they did in Canva, but it was like pink and sparkly and like I was like, "Whoa, this is too much." So, I like that, it can be a little bit fun, and I love when people put their picture on it and they have, you know, everything there, but like does it look professional? Is this the type of person that you want representing your office?
Yeah, yeah. And I think
And
to add to that, I always tell my clients, and sometimes they just look at me because they're like, I don't know, I have to think about it. But what is your non-negotiables? When you make that clear, it's easier to align with who you're interviewing because the minute you have your list of non-negotiables and you see that there's ones on there that just it plays against that with the candidate in front of you, move on. Don't say, well, I'll try it. I'll try her out. Because then to your point of spending all this money on hiring, training, exposing your office to them, and then most likely stressing out your team that has to be also be involved and train that individual is not worth it. And then also your patients are like, the girl from last week is no longer here. Then they're also in their mind like, oh, this office has a high turnover. Be picky. I always say, hire slowly, fire fast. Take your time. You're better off being short staffed and potentially getting a temp or two than bringing somebody into your practice is not aligned with your practice and doesn't fit your non-negotiables, because everybody should have their non-negotiables when it comes to who should be part of their team. And I also encourage you to ask your team what they think those should be, because then they're part of that circle and The minute for example, I had an office where we did a team building, and I said, okay, everybody write their non-negotiables for the practice. And one of them was that cannot be late, has to be there on time for huddle. And in that team building, two team members ended up saying, well, half of us are always late. And I said, so here we are. You want to bring someone on your team that you get annoyed if they're 5 minutes late, but the reflections upon you guys. If you guys cannot be on time for huddle.
Okay. Well, I think we covered a lot of great stuff today. I hope you got a few tips and it can help you with your hiring process. As always, you can reach out to Malika and I. Like, as we said, we don't do hiring unless it's our client, but we're always happy to help with recommendations for you. So until next time, we'll see you soon.
Thank you for listening to Accelerate Your Dental Practice. To learn more about your hosts and explore consulting services tailored to your practice, visit affinitymanagement.co for Michelle Affanato and zardentalconsulting.com for Malika Azargoon. Be sure to follow, rate, and share the podcast. And join us next time for more tools, tips, and strategies to help you accelerate your dental practice.